Hello, beautiful ladies. We are here on day 4 of our Ending Emotional Eating Challenge. I've been having a lot of fun this week. I just want to say thank you for the incredible ladies who are showing up with me here live, and also for those of you who are watching the replay and giving some feedback and your incredible insights. This work that you're doing and opening yourself to is shining some light on some really needed and places that need some care and some compassion, and you're doing a great job. So happy that we're here on day 4, because day 4 is got a lot of really helpful solutions and strategies for you. So with that, just want to open it up and see, does anybody have any questions or anything that they want to talk about with respect to either day 1, which is that new perspective on emotional eating, like, oh wow, this thing that I thought was this monster or this addiction for me is actually really well understood and easily explained. Day 2, which was your nervous system, and making sure that you've got that good solid foundation of a nervous system that is calm and alive as opposed to living in survival. And then yesterday, with respect to our habits and our thought patterns, if there's anything that you started to do some work and ran into some questions or some insights, I would love to hear from you about any of that before we move on. Yeah. Okay, great. No, that means that, things are going smoothly and that things are registering, and, whatever you've been able to do is, didn't bring up too many questions or concerns or anything. So that's awesome. That means I'm going to take, the kind of the no news is good news approach there. Okay, well, let's get started on day 3. I think today will be, if you don't do anything else, I think today putting a little bit of focused attention on what we're going to talk about today will probably bring the biggest shifts. Maybe some of you are feeling a little bit overwhelmed by the way I'm laying out, like there's a lot of pieces to overcoming food challenges. Maybe you hope that I could share 1 or 2 tools with you that would allow you to control yourself in the moment, and so you feel like, oh, this is a much bigger journey than I thought, or maybe, and I hope this is true, that you're feeling empowered. You're like, oh wow, I see now that I've been putting all of my focus and effort into controlling myself, or into things that didn't lead to any result. That's awesome news, because that stuff didn't work. And so now I can put my time and attention on the things that will actually work for me, and I'll get somewhere different. Yeah, that stuff didn't work, but it doesn't mean that I can't overcome this. It just means that I didn't have the right information and tools to allow me to make these changes and do something different. So if you're somebody who feels more in the camp of feeling, like, shit, this is a lot of work, this is I don't know how to go about all these things, I want to hear from you, because it's a definitely an understandable reaction to all of this, but at the same time, it's not true. You totally can overcome your challenges, and I would love to make sure that we have a conversation about that, and how I can support you in this process. Okay, this process may sound like a lot, but it's actually a really beautiful opening up that leads to great things in your life, and beyond just your food and your health. So today we're going to dive into emotional resiliency. As I was talking about throughout the week, this is one of the 5 pillars for effective, permanent weight loss, for developing that new relationship with food. It is, and again, we talk about self-love and acceptance for yourself, where you are today, right now, even as you work towards change, understanding how your brain has formed habits and how you can overcome those, And then we talk about the triggers, which are your thoughts, aligning your thoughts with the behavior that you want to have. Number 4 is this piece of emotional resiliency. And when I say emotional resiliency, what I mean is for you to be able to experience your emotions that don't feel good, your unwanted emotions, being able to experience them and not needing anything outside of you. And today we're going to talk about how it's actually can be a beautiful process. Right now, up till this point, you've thought of these uncomfortable emotions like this is a bad thing and I need to, get rid of them or at least not experience them no matter what it takes. So we're going to be looking at that today. And then the 5th piece, the nutrition that's right for you, right? Your individual body. So that's kind of the bigger overview. And I said that the only way we can achieve these pillars, the only way we can make progress is if our nervous system is in that place of calm aliveness with a felt sense of safety and support. So that's how it relates to the bigger picture. So let's kind of put our microscope on this piece of emotional resiliency and just, kind of, we're going to reiterate a lot of the things that we've talked about so far this week. So don't think I'm going crazy that I don't remember that we talked about these things already. It's just hearing them once is not going to produce any real change for you. So I'm going back and I'm reinforcing the things that we talked about and hopefully, solidifying for you what those steps really are, how they apply in your life. And that should, I hope, help you feel more empowered around, okay, this is a solution. I've got tools. There are real, things that I can do to be different with my relationship with food. So during the week, we've talked about the fact that, your brain learned and formed neural pathways that reinforced this behavior of turning to food in times when you were uncomfortable, whatever that looked like, right? And you became over time more and more efficient at turning to food because your brain loves efficiency. It thinks it's helping you because you've told it to do it so many times in the past. So this brain of yours and mine is incredibly resourceful and it thinks it's being helpful, but really it's just a way to, it was just a way to take care of yourself in a moment that felt too intense to stand in. That's all this really is. And all of us do it. All of us do it. It doesn't mean that all of us, that there's consequences for all of us, because if it only happens, once every couple of months or, a couple times a year, I mean, think Thanksgiving, right? Thanksgiving is a total emotional eating experience and everybody does it, but it's not a big deal. So I don't want you to attach any like judgment or, that emotional eating is this, awful thing that happens. We all do it from time to time. And what we want to be aware of is, how can, first of all, doing it all the time to meet our negative emotions or our unwanted emotions shuts us down to actually being able to learn from them and grow from them. And that's something, that growth and that learning is something that we want. And also, of course, there's the ramifications in the sense of your weight and health that come from taking that action with food. So it's not that we want to continue it. It's just that I always want you to realize that there's nothing wrong with you. It's just an effort and a way you learn to take care of yourself. So I want to kind of dive into an emotionally triggered situation. Let's really think about, and maybe for yourself, a time, maybe you have one in your recent past where you were with the food and just kind of aware, or maybe not so aware. Maybe you were aware afterwards that what you were doing was emotionally eating. But in that moment, we may feel a first twinge of something. Maybe we're working on a project or something, and we get to a point in it where either it's like we've exceeded our capacity to concentrate and focus. And so we start getting, bored or overwhelmed by it, or it's something that we don't want to be working on. And so, we're feeling kind of, frustrated or whatever, discouraged by having to do that. Or we feel like, oh, maybe I'm not doing a good job. Maybe I'm not, able to do this in a way that I need to, whatever it is, and we start to first feel those feelings. And maybe you don't even recognize that they're emotions. Maybe you just have the thought, some chips would be really good right now. Or maybe you have a sense in your body, like, oh, a sinking feeling is what comes up for me in my body, a sinking feeling. And I don't even really have to know what it's about. I don't really have to have a bunch of thoughts before that. Sometimes it's just a feeling of dread, or, somehow feeling a rise of discomfort. Okay. So can you guys relate to that? Is there points in your life, in your day, where you just, when there's just that rise of discomfort, whatever it looks like, whether it's stemming from thoughts or, body sensations or feelings, whatever it is? Is this making sense? Thumbs up. Yeah. Okay, good. So we have that moment, and our brain immediately goes to the place and it tells us this conversation, even though it happens like that. So we may not even really be aware that this is happening. And the brain says something like, nope, not going to let this happen. This emotion's too big. It's too powerful. It has the potential to swallow me. So I'm going to go swallow something, right? So that I can protect myself. And it makes perfect sense, right? There's no shame in it. It's just, ew, why would I want to feel that way? We are pleasure seeking by nature. Why would we want to sit in that feeling, whatever it is? And so our work, within this area has to be to understand that there is nothing wrong with us, right? This is like totally natural for us to want to escape on this discomfort that we're having. So we also talked about the fact that, our brain is incredibly intelligent. It does many, many things right. It protects us, right? But it's wrong about you needing to run away or get away, escape from big, uncomfortable emotions. It's just wrong. You can absolutely sit in those emotions and come out the other side and be totally fine. Right now, your brain says you can't. We've never done that. That's not possible, because the brain only has access to what it has experienced. So if that's not your normal way of handling a discomfort, a uncomfortable emotion, then your brain's going to say, we can't do this, right? And then, like we talked about on Monday, your nervous system in that case is in survival. And so it's chiming in and saying, hey, this is a matter of life or death, right? It feels like that. When we're in that moment and we're feeling triggered, and the thought comes, have the chips, we're convinced that we're going to die if we don't have those chips, right? It sounds ridiculous to say it out loud, but it's true. Think about the last time you were in that situation where you were, had the food in front of you or whatever it is, and you knew, right, that you had to do this. Otherwise, you didn't know what was going to happen, but it was not going to be good, right? That's the story the brain has in order to protect us, but it's not true. It's not true. And you don't have to listen to everything that your brain tells you, right? There's been a lot of research conducted around emotions and in a lot of different areas. But what they found was that emotions, if we're not resisting them, if we're just allowing them to be there, they will wash over us in a matter of something as short as 90 seconds. 90 seconds. If we could truly be with the emotion, not fighting it, but just truly be with it, we might only have to ride that wave for a minute and a half before it would go away. Now, we also want to do some work we understand that emotion and stuff, because we have a lot to do and a lot of control over what emotions we feel. So it's not just, that the strategy is to just, sit with those emotions again and again, and they could keep coming back over and over. We also have a lot of resources for us to be able to work with our thoughts and understand our emotions so that we can heal some things that are creating these emotions. So we'll be experiencing a lot less uncomfortable emotions. But we don't have to fix everything in order to be able to learn how to ride that wave of the emotion, to stand in that moment where they're like, I need chips, I need them right now. we can stand in that moment and bring more awareness and understanding and eventually develop new habits around it and just be with that emotion. And I know you may be thinking, yeah, I've tried that, or it's easier said than done, but there are a lot of really beautiful practices and strategies that will allow you to get better and better at this practice. And it's very much a practice. It is not something that you're going to hear today and then start implementing like that in an easy way. It's going to take some time, right? Because that's not the norm. And brains need to build new practices. They don't just, step into them overnight. But the main point here is, that emotion is not going away when you refuse it. You're not really escaping anything when you go to the food, because that emotion is just stuffed down and it's staying in your body somewhere, right? And so it may be creating some kind of, disease in your body. It may be creating some kind of pain in your body. We don't get, this is not an easy ticket where all I have to do is, eat a candy bar and then everything is better. That's what the brain says in the moment, right? Eat the candy bar and then you won't have to feel this discomfort. But emotions have a way of coming back and getting heard in one way or another. So some of our work is just, allowing them in so that we can learn what they're here to teach us. So maybe the idea of you standing in those emotions is just feeling making you feel kind of overwhelmed or even frightened right now. And I really get that. So maybe for you, your first step is not even to be in that space by yourself. Maybe for you, the first step could be something as easy as, okay, here I am in this moment. I am eating the chips. I went ahead and went it, but I'm open to the idea that maybe someday I could sit in this emotion and not need food. Instead of putting all your energy into beating yourself up and saying how bad this is and how this is the last time and all of that energy doesn't move you anywhere. It doesn't change anything. But being accepting of yourself and just kind of allowing what is to be there, along with starting to embrace the idea that, hey, maybe it is possible for me at one point, to do something different. I think it might be. Maybe that's your first step. It doesn't matter what the first step is. It matters that you take it and that you're able to do it consistently, because then it gets strong and you can build on it. Progress in this area, it looks messy, and messy is totally fine. It's the way it looks, but there's so much beauty in it, and also so much progress that's possible. So what I really want to bring you today and get you thinking about is standing in those moments where you are triggered in a little bit of a different way. So as I've been talking about, being able to stand in those moments and register on a deep level, what is the emotions that I'm feeling? What are the thoughts that I'm having, right? Just like yesterday when we talk about the awareness, because our thoughts are generating our emotions. So if we can stand in those moments, okay, I'm at my desk, I'm working, and I get that feeling of, whatever it is, boredom or frustration or overwhelm. My mind says, have some chips that will help you get through the rest of this project or whatever it is. If I'm in that moment, and this is what I want to encourage you to do, just to step back for just even a minute and look at that and be there, not should I eat the chips? How am I going to not eat the chips? Well, if I eat the chips, then I have to, then I shouldn't eat dinner, and, all of that. Usually that's the kind of thing where we put our attention and we miss the opportunity. And I want you to be open to the idea that every triggered moment is actually an opportunity. It doesn't have to be an awful thing or a thing that you try to fight against. You could recognize it as truly an opportunity. You could say to yourself, something's going on for me. Oh, this is awesome. This is the moment where I get to meet myself. and know myself. There's good information here. There's information that I need to, stand in my life in a different way. This is awesome. This is like, the secrets of, of my soul coming up right now in this moment. So instead of seeing the triggered moments as these, you know, um, places where you want to curse the moment and curse yourself and be all, wrapped up in the food and all of that, open up to it as almost like a gift, right? I think of the urges as a little alarm that's going off. Hey, something needs attention over here. And that's exactly what they are. And when we can walk into those or be present in those moments and be present with ourselves, then we can gather that information and either work on what's happening inside. And that's something that we dive into a little bit deeper, much deeper actually in the program. But you don't have to have all the answers in that moment to be able to stand there and be present with yourself. And the first step with this, is we're not doing this in order to prevent yourself from eating. That's really important. This is not the goal. I'm not telling you how to control yourself in the moment. I'm not giving you some trick where you will be able to say no to the chips. What I'm actually saying is, whatever, the chips are whatever, they're not important in this moment. They're just there. And it's just, we've got this habit, whatever. If we can take our attention off the food and put it on our internal world, then we can understand what's going on and we can strengthen our ability to be in that moment with ourselves. And over time, when we build that skill, then we don't want the chips because the chips don't do anything for us. They're not helpful. I don't want to run away from my emotions. I want to be right here with me, understanding them and caring for myself in them. And I know this sounds like whatever, that's like so far from where I am right now, but it's not actually. So what I'm saying is, if you don't worry about the chips, you can eat the chips, you cannot eat the chips in this moment. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you tune in and you embrace yourself and whatever it is that you're feeling. And again, the brain is going to say, don't do this. Do not entertain. Do not feel this emotion. This emotion will kill you. That's what the brain is screaming. So you have to be aware of that, right? You have to know, oh, I'm standing back here watching my brain tell me that. Well, brain, it's actually not true. It's not true that I can't stand in this emotion. It feels like that because I have not done it. And there was probably a time in your life when that emotion literally was too much for you. But that was, long ago, and you have so much more skills and resiliency at this point in your life. And also, you're going to be learning these new tools and getting support and all the things that you need to be able to stand in this moment. So what I like to suggest if people are open and willing is, you're having that moment. Okay, I want the chips. All right. Whatever you need to do, whatever it looks like for you to be able to be with yourself, do that, but do it in a more conscious and slow way. So maybe that could look like, and I'm just using chips as an example, but maybe it could look like, going and getting your prettiest bowl, or the bowl that you would most would be likely to serve somebody else if they were at your house, and put the chips in the bowl and go and sit with yourself at the table or whatever you can do. And just, say, I'm allowing you to have these chips because, this is what you've always done. And I want you to just be relaxed in this moment so that I can talk to you, so that I can understand who you are and what's going on for you right now. I mean, what a beautiful thing. Imagine if I could be, and this is something I've dreamed about, like I would love to do this, but if you could call me on the phone, if we were neighbors and you could call me on the phone every time you were in a triggered space, and I could come over to your house and I could sit there with you and we could talk about, what's going on, how you feel. Oh, okay. It's probably, we've got some habit going on here, and we could have this conversation where you felt safe and could share with me And, you know, and we could have a few chips together if that's, you know, needed, if it was too much to be able to sit in it without that help, whatever it is. But if I was there with you, I do believe that you would be able to get through those many of those moments. And what I want to teach you to do is to be that presence for yourself in your life. And that's why, you know, this ties, everything ties together, but that piece of self-love and acceptance, that's, you know, why that is so fundamental. Because if you don't have acceptance and compassion for yourself, how are you going to sit there? How are you going to respect and validate and honor what's going on inside you? Right. So I want to really, you know, encourage you to be in those moments in a different way. You know, imagine yourself in those moments. Imagine us, you know, all of us as a community showing up at your house and being, you know, like, hey, we're here. We're going to work through this moment together. You have everything you need. You would be able to do it. And then pretty soon you would be able to develop new neural pathways. So how can you show up for yourself in those moments without judgment, certainly, right? Because the judgment is going to take you and put all your energy into being bad and how you shouldn't be doing this and how you want to be doing something different. That's the thing right there that has kept you from making progress, is that you're putting all your time and energy and focus into the wrong thing, and beating yourself up is the wrong thing. Be inside those moments, you know, invite your challenges to the table, so to speak, literally and figuratively. Invite them to the table and sit there with them. I would love, you know, if there's any way, and sometimes this is effective and people have done this. If you ever wanted to, you have my email address. It's Lori, Lori, at Nuaria, NUUARIA.com. If you ever wanted to sit in one of those moments and draft an email that just kind of, you know, reaching out, even if, you know, I'm not there live sitting beside you, energetically I am there. You're reaching out. I am going to read that email. I am going to respond to you. And so just know that there is love and support in that moment, even though I'm not your neighbor and I can't knock on your door and come and sit with you. I'd really love to. And if you, you know, call me in that way through your email or through, you know, the Facebook group, whatever, in some way, I think I am there. And I'd really love to support you in that moment, because I think that we can do this together. So, you know, this is a conversation that you want to have with yourself. And it could look something like, you know, I notice that I have a desire to eat even though I'm not hungry. Okay. I know from my past, this comes up when I'm stressed, overwhelmed, feeling disappointed, but rather than run away from those feelings by eating, I'm going to welcome them instead. In essence, my compulsion or my desire to emotionally eat is just a messenger that something needs my attention. If you can be in that moment and have that discussion, regardless of what you do with the food, things are going to start to change for you. You're going to, and it's also going to be a powerful exercise in your own development of self-compassion and love, right? Showing up for yourself is like the gold standard when it comes to building that for yourself. Yeah. So the integration for today is really, you know, part one is about becoming more familiar with your day-to-day emotions so that you can start to be a friend with those emotions and just start to be aware, right? We talked yesterday about how awareness is such an important first element. If you're not aware of your emotions, right, then how are you ever going to understand them and process them and learn from them, right? We tend to run away from our emotions so much that we have no idea what's going on inside in our internal world because it feels overwhelming. And again, that's where the nervous system work comes in, right? Because if you're overwhelmed in general, trying to sit with or engage with uncomfortable emotions is not a possibility. It's not a possibility. So again, the foundational piece with the nervous system, you have to have a felt sense of safety and support before you can sit in that space and allow yourself to feel uncomfortable. Otherwise, you've got your primitive brain running and is driving all of your actions, and it is saying, that's danger. You need to run away. So you can see how, I'm breaking these pieces up into parts so that I can explain them, and we can, look at them and maybe start some integration, but they're all so related that we can't just focus on one or the other. That's why through the program, we're working on all of them kind of all the time. Maybe we're talking about habits one day, but really the whole big picture is in the background always. So I want to invite you, just like yesterday, where we said, hey, let's start to develop some awareness around your thoughts. Let's do the same thing with our emotions. And that can be done at the same time. They're so tied that, we don't have to look at them separately. But, and the other thing is when you're trying in the moment, when you're feeling triggered, and that's the moment where you say, what am I feeling? What's going on? It's intense. And so by doing this work and paying attention to yourself outside the moment, then over time, what you find are those triggered situations are less and less intense. And you've developed some skill for listening, but you want to do it outside the moment as well as inside the moment. And those two things support each other. You get better at it because you've done it. But a lot of times, and especially in the beginning, it's much easier to entertain some of those emotions when you're in a good space, So I want to invite you, just like with the thoughts, set aside a couple of times during the day where you just check in and ask yourself, what are you feeling? And at first, this is very, very common. Most people will say, I don't know. I don't know. And that's not a bad thing. It's just a indication that there's work here that you can do, and it will open you up to what's going on inside. It will over time. It's kind of the way I describe it, kind of in a silly way, but it's like your emotions or the parts of you that live inside you. At first, right? It's kind of like you have a neighbor who's a really awful neighbor. They take your packages off your porch, they put their trash in your trash bin, they let their dog poop in your yard, all the things, right, that you could imagine about not being such a great neighbor. And then one day they show up at your door and they're like, hey, I really love to have coffee with you, right? You might be a little bit skeptical at first. You might, maybe not be willing to open up and, and invite that neighbor in. Maybe there might need to be some, casual exchanges in the driveways or something before you can start to build that relationship and be open to this person, sharing time and space with this person. It's kind of like that with your emotions. If you have told your emotions, I don't like you, you're not welcome here, I'm not going to listen to you, they may not just, open up to you the very first time you start to make space for them. It may take a little bit of time for them to trust you. And I'm personalizing them, right? I'm personifying them. And maybe that seems a little silly or weird, but it really serves, I think, to understand. And you will have this experience, everyone does, where your emotions get to be more comfortable with you. The parts of you that are experiencing the emotions do become more comfortable. And you are able more and more to show up as that kind, caring, compassionate presence in your life with the emotions. So what I'm saying is, take some time, 2-3 times a day would be wonderful for you to just show up and be present with your emotions. You don't have to choose only the intense, uncomfortable spaces, and it doesn't make sense to, you don't go for piano lessons and the very first time, having never played the piano, and the piano teacher's like, all right, Moonlight Sonata coming right up, right? You'd look at that person, you'd be like, what are you talking about? I don't even know I don't read music yet. I don't know where the keys are on the piano, the notes. How could you give me Moonlight Sonata? That's kind of like, just expecting yourself to stand in those emotions when you're feeling really triggered on day one, right now. It's not that I don't want you to be open to that idea and to even be trying a little bit. That's wonderful. But if you can start to work outside of those triggered moments to know yourself and to allow in some emotions, then that's going to be your scales right? That's going to be understanding, learning how to read music and doing the things. I talked yesterday and actually very much in my interview this morning that I did about, we're over here and on step 1, and we know what the ideal is over here, step 10, which is I don't, have to act on those urges and I don't eat the chips. And because we're aware of what the ideal is, we immediately think that's what I should be doing. That's what I'm going to keep shooting for, keep shooting for, keep shooting for. And to me, that's like, trying to reach something on the ceiling by keep jumping up, keep jumping up. And of course, I'm going to miss it every time because I can't reach the ceiling. Instead, if I would get the ladder, and build the steps that I need in order to reach what was on the ceiling, then I would get there so much easier and quicker, and it would be possible to get there as opposed to just keep, reaching for, trying to jump up and reach something that's never going to happen. And that's what I feel like we do when we expect ourselves to be different in those moments of being triggered, those intense, overwhelming experiences. We expect ourselves to show up differently in those moments without building and going through the steps that actually help us get there. So if I can give you the opportunity, if I can share with you, something that you can do, it may seem like, yeah, but I really want you to help me in the moment because that's where I'm frustrated. I'm never going to lose weight until I stop doing that in the moment. Okay, well, we can keep jumping up and hoping, maybe our jump will improve by a few inches, because we're keep trying, but we're never going to reach the ceiling. So let's be patient with ourselves and let's, be willing to do these smaller things to build a ladder, whatever that looks like, whatever your first step is. That first step may be just paying attention when you're in that moment. So, to the extent that you could put away some distractions, maybe that's your first step. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to allow myself to eat the chips. And again, this is just one example of many. Don't think that it only applies, when you're having this kind of experience, but I'm going to put away some distractions and I'm going to go ahead and eat the food. But I'm going to just, ask myself what's going on. I'm going to not bring it back to my desk and eat it in front of my computer, or I'm not just going to turn on the TV, because all of those actions are abandonment of yourself. You're literally abandoning yourself in those moments when you just, go with the food and you're not doing anything bad. I don't mean to say that, or there's any judgment around it, but you're literally just leaving yourself. And that's kind of, a sad thing to do. Instead, I just want you, whatever you do with the food, to show up for yourself. And the second thing is to try to get in touch with your emotional world when you're not triggered, right? Because that's going to be easier. And then as you get used to it, you'll start to see, oh, my emotions aren't so scary. I kind of like the fact that I meet myself in these moments. I'm curious about what I have to say and what the experience is. Why am I feeling this emotion? Is this something that I want to keep feeling? And it's also some work that we do to look at that and say, why am I experiencing this emotion? Oh, I have a belief that if I don't, do every project perfectly or whatever it is, that I'm not a good person. That's why I'm having this emotion. Well, we get to work on that too, so that, over time, that belief goes away and then you're not experiencing that emotion on a regular basis. So there's just so much that's possible when you open yourself up to your emotional world and what you might be needing and the root of so many of our emotions. And I know that that's kind of, this is such a big part of the work that we do. So for me to be able to distill it down into these 35 minutes or whatever of conversation, it is a lot, and it's a lot to take in and a lot to understand. So I would encourage you to spend some time on these concepts. Maybe you took some notes and you want to kind of review them and think about how they apply to you. Maybe you want to watch this again and see it from a different perspective. And as you do the work, you're going to be changing. So you might watch this video in a week or two and be like, oh, wow, okay, now I was ready for the next layer that was there. So that you're not going to take all of this in. You're not expected to, you're not supposed to, and, you know, start to experience massive changes. But you can start seeing some shifts, and just the new perspective can be incredibly powerful. So that is the integration piece for your emotional resiliency work. And I would love to just kind of, open it up. If you've had any experiences in this area, if you've, just noticed yourself in some of these moments and how you've reacted, and how you could possibly show up differently. What are some of your thoughts and ideas?
I know for me, this is the hardest part. When I've tried to deal with my emotions before, that's when I end up backing out of the program
Yes.
because I don't want to deal with my emotions. So this is where I really need to focus a lot, but it's extremely difficult for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that entirely. We have created a story for ourselves that the emotions will kill us. Feels like that. And so standing in those, and that's why we never want to do this alone, you know. And Nancy's not doing it alone. She made the decision to get into the program and get a year of support with respect to the emotions. And like I said, if I could come, if I was your neighbor and I could come and sit with you, we'd have this thing licked in no time, because we just need that feeling of safety, that it's safe to be in that space with our emotions. And I know this from my own personal experience. I did not want any of my emotions at all, and I tried to do it alone, and I even had a lot of knowledge in this area, but because I didn't get the support I needed, I spun my wheels in this area for a lot longer than I needed to. And it was incredible when I opened myself up to support, how quickly things moved at that point, because I felt it was enabled me to feel safe, to feel loved in the space of entertaining these emotions. So I'm so happy that you are going to be, in this beautiful circle of support, and getting, the tools, the one tool that's ready, that you're ready for today, as opposed to, oh my God, I gotta let all these emotions in, I have to, do it in a way that feels overwhelming. That just shuts us down, like your experience is saying. We need to crack the door, and just be like, hey, emotion, and then close the door again really quick. That's okay. Right. But we start to get more and more of a sense of comfort, in interacting. It's just being willing to take whatever the step is that's appropriate for us, and not send us into the overwhelm with our nervous system and everything that we talked about, because in that space